stayed at the same campground for 2 weeks while we were in DC. There were beautiful sunsets, and there was even a snapping turtle.
I got a buckle fracture in my wrist when I fell off the RV stairs. I went to the urgent care and got a splint. Then I ate Panda Express.
On Tuesday, we toured the Capitol. Our granddad was able to get a tour with Kansas Representative Ron Estes. We saw his office, and his intern, Andrew, took us on our tour. We went through underground tunnels from the office buildings to the Capitol. It was like a behind-the-scenes tour. In one hallway, the National Exhibition is held. Each representative got to choose one art piece made by a student in their state. This made it so there was a very large variety of art medias. Representative Estes chose the 3D flower painting on the bottom right. Inside the Capitol, there were a lot of statues of different people. Each state had 2 statues of important people from that state. Some were in the Capitol. Some were in the main lobby, while others were all around the building. This statue was used as a mold for the statue on top of the Capitol. She looks a lot smaller on top of the dome. Then we went to the old Supreme Court chamber used from 1810 to 1860. In the next room we went to, Andrew pointed out little paw prints left by the cats that used to hunt mice in the Capitol. Then we walked up the staircase to the rotunda. The inner dome was intricately decorated with a beautiful mural in the middle. There were some more state statues here and big paintings of different times in U.S. history. Then we went to the Senate chamber used from 1810 to 1859. Finally, we went to a small exhibit about the Capitol before walking around the Capitol to the other side.
Gemma put the Shenandoah and Capitol stickers on the trailer. On Wednesday, we went up the Washington Monument. We took the elevator up to the top. It is 555 feet tall, so we could see a lot. There were many viewing points. We could see the empty reflection pool, Lincoln Memorial, World War II Memorial, White House, National Cathedral, Thomas Jefferson Memorial, and Tidal Basin. We also saw a crack that an earthquake had made. There was a little museum at the top as well. On the way down, the windows cleared and we could see the inside of the monument. Then we got a passport stamp and our Junior Ranger badges for the National Mall. On the way back to the car, we walked on the now completely empty reflection pool. Later that day, we drove to Arlington National Cemetery. We saw the small visitor center museum, then went on the trolley tour. A caisson passed us while we were driving, so we pulled over. A caisson was a horse-drawn cart carrying a casket. We saw JFK's grave, Robert E. Lee's family residence called Arlington House, the Marine Corps Memorial, and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier signifies all the unknown soldiers that have died in our wars. It is guarded 24/7, and we watched the changing of the guards. After that, we visited my grandpa's uncle, Joe Riley's grave. He fought in World War II and the Korean War and was part of the 101st Airborne.
We visited Ford's Theater for a more unusual experience. Ford's Theater was the site of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination by John Wilkes Booth on April 14, 1865. Instead of going through the museum, we watched a play inside the theater. The play was about Lincoln's assassination from the point of view of the owner of Ford's Theater and an actor working in that infamous play. The acting was very well done and it was a very engaging show. This was a great way for Gemma to learn the history since she isn't a strong reader yet, so it is hard for her to absorb much in a museum. We went across the street to the Peterson House where Lincoln died the morning after he was shot. This bed is the exact bed he died on. Then we went next door to a museum that focused on the aftermath of Lincoln's death. They also had this awesome 4-story tall book tower made of books about Lincoln. The National Archives is where the original copies of the U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence are kept. There is no photography allowed in the building, but it is really cool seeing the real documents we've read about in history books. After the National Archives, we went to the Holocaust Museum. It's incredibly difficult to explain how you feel while you're there. You've really got to see it for yourself. All I can say is that I've always been interested in the Holocaust, but walking through that museum made that horrific time ever more real. On our way back to the car, we saw the Benjamin Franklin Memorial.
One day we went to Manassas Battlefield, also known as the First and Second Battles of Bull Run. We went and looked at the recreation of the bridge that the Union fled on. The Confederates won both battles. We took a quick break for lunch at a Hispanic restaurant called Estancia's Restaurant. It had good food. After that, we went back and got a guided tour. The ranger was amazing and very informative. One thing we learned was Mrs. Henry was 80 years old and the first civilian casualty in the Civil War. She got killed in her house in the first battle after refusing to leave. We saw the house that her son built on the same spot Mrs. Henry's old house was. People were even picnicking on a nearby hill thinking it would be over quickly. It was not, and started the Civil War, which killed almost as many people as all of our other wars combined. We got our junior ranger badges from the same ranger and even got some suggestions of other national parks to visit. Easter morning, we woke up and saw we had gotten lots of treats from the Easter Bunny. Then we went to Easter service at Pohick Church. George Washington lived 6 miles east of the church and went there often. George Mason funded some of the church too. During the Civil War, it was stripped and used as a stable, but after a while it was restored. There are still initials engraved from this time. Service was about how Mary Magdalene was the first person to see Jesus' empty tomb. They sang lots of hymns. After service, Brietta and Gemma did an Easter egg hunt. Sadly, we had to move later that day.
We continued on at the same beautiful Army base campground and splurged on lunch at Manassas. I must say, being from San Diego, I was amazed to find the wonderful homemade horchata and delicious Salvadoran food in Virginia. The biggest thing about touring DC is planning and reserving all of the activity tickets ahead of time. For a big surprise, we saw the 8th grade group from Molinas Middle School at the Holocaust Museum and were able to chat with some of the staff. It was great to see them on the other side of the U.S.
There was so much to do.
See you next week on Rise on the Road. Happy Easter!